All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to talk about something that's a huge challenge in, well, pretty much any organization: change. We're going to look at a really cool way to think about it, a framework for leading change that isn't about some massive disruptive push. Instead, it's about taking it one manageable bite at a time.
So, here's a question that probably keeps a lot of leaders up at night. You've got this brilliant new strategy, right? Maybe a game-changing piece of tech, or a much-needed improvement to how things are done. You announce it, everyone's excited, and then nothing. It just fizzles. You get resistance, confusion, and before you know it, everyone's just drifted back to the old way. So what gives? Why is making big changes so darn hard?
Well, a really powerful way to answer that question comes from a super simple but kind of profound metaphor. See, we need to forget about trying to swallow a huge change all at once. Instead, I want you to think about it like eating an apple. I mean, it's good for you, it's one single thing, but you can't just shove the whole thing in your mouth, right? You have to take it one bite at a time. And that little shift in how we see things, that's the foundation for a much, much better way to lead.
You know, the old way of thinking about change is that it's this single, massive event, like a big bang launch, a total overhaul, a switch that just gets flipped on a Monday morning, and poof, everything's different. But the problem with that is, it just doesn't work. It feels like you're trying to force a square peg into a round hole. It's jarring, it creates all this friction, and it almost never fits with the messy, complex, human reality of how an organization actually functions.
And this really brings up an important difference in thinking. For years, you've probably heard the old saying for big projects: how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But you know what? That all framing is part of the problem. An elephant is, well, it's overwhelming. It's intimidating. An apple, though, that feels totally manageable. It shifts our whole focus away from this one single exhausting project and toward a series of small, satisfying wins. And those small wins are what build real, lasting momentum.
This right here, this is the core principle of the whole approach. Whatever that big, grand vision is, you have to break it down. And the goal isn't just to pretend it's smaller, it's to create actual mini projects that teams can really truly own. See, when a piece of the change is small enough that you can actually get your arms around it, you can get it done effectively, you can see the results of your work fast, and that builds the confidence you need to take on the next piece.
Okay, so having this philosophy of taking small bites is a fantastic start. But let's be real. A plan is totally useless if nobody is willing to take that first bite. And this brings us to what is maybe the most critical ingredient for success: empowering the people who actually have to live with this change day in and day out. It's such a simple truth, but it's one that leaders forget all the time. The real experts, they're not always in the boardroom. The people who are actually doing the work every day, the ones using the software, talking to the customers, they understand the little details, the sticking points, better than anyone else. Ignoring that knowledge is just a recipe for failure. Tapping into it, that's the real secret to making change work in the real world.
So how do you get people on board? Well, it's not about just barking orders. It's about building real, genuine motivation. And that starts by answering the one question everyone is silently asking: what's in it for me? Seriously, if people can't see how this new thing makes their job better or easier or more rewarding, they're just not going to engage. And you have to back that up with clear, constant communication, because if you go silent, people just fill that void with uncertainty and rumors. But the most important thing? Leaders have to walk the walk. If their actions don't match their words, any trust you've built is just gone, instantly. You know, there's actually a psychological theory that explains this perfectly. It's called Vroom's expectations theory. I know, it sounds super academic, but the idea behind it is incredibly simple. Basically, your motivation to do something, let's call it action X, boils down to two things. First, how much you actually want the result, we'll call that outcome Y. And second, how much you truly believe that doing X will get you to Y. That's it.
Let's break that down a bit. The first piece is desire. You can't just announce, hey, we're doing a new process. That's not going to fly. You have to sell the destination. So, for example, don't just say, we're implementing a new CRM system. Instead, say something like, we're getting a new tool that's going to save you 2 hours of boring data entry every week, so you can spend that time on the creative stuff you actually enjoy. People have to genuinely want the future that you're painting for them.
Okay, and the second piece is belief. And this is just as important. Even if people absolutely love the destination you've described, they also have to believe that the path you've chosen will actually get them there. If they see their hard work getting tangled up in red tape, or if their feedback gets totally ignored, they're just going to think, what's the point? Belief is built when they see small, visible wins. things that prove their actions are actually making a difference. So we've got the right philosophy, thinking in small bites, and we understand what drives motivation. Now we can get into the nuts and bolts. How do we actually put all this together into a practical, repeatable process that makes change actually stick? Well, that's where this cycle comes in.
Here it is, the plan, do, stabilize, repeat cycle. It's so simple, it's brilliant. First, you plan. You figure out that very first, small, manageable bite of the apple. Don't try to plan the whole thing out. Then, you do it. You put that small piece into action with the right team. Now, here's the crucial third step, stabilize. This is where so many change efforts fall apart. You can't just move on to the next thing. You have to make sure that new way of working becomes the normal way of working. It has to be stable. And only then, once it's locked in, do you repeat the cycle with the next bite of the apple.
You know, the real beauty of this model is that it's more than just a plan. It's like a learning engine for the whole organization. With every single cycle, you get smarter. You learn what works and what doesn't work inside your specific company culture. This means you're not stuck with some rigid, year-long plan that was based on guesswork from the start. Instead, you're constantly adapting, constantly improving, and building up that organizational muscle with every single bite.
And of course, through every single one of those steps, plan, do, stabilize, and repeat, there's one thing that keeps the whole machine running smoothly: communication. And I don't mean just one memo at the beginning. I'm talking about constant, consistent updates, making sure everyone knows what's happening, why it's happening, and exactly how their piece of the puzzle fits into the bigger picture.
When you boil it all down, this whole approach is about shifting your focus away from some overwhelming, massive transformation and onto small, actionable steps. The goal isn't to map out some huge project for next year. It's to find the apple that's right in front of you today. So the question I want to leave you with is this: what's the smallest, most manageable, but still meaningful piece of change you could start tomorrow? What's that very first bite that could start building momentum toward a better future?